All right, welcome everybody. I'm Mike Annandale. I'm not sure if my screen sort of popped up to the side of yours. I want to welcome you all to our course selection evening for current grade 8 students moving towards grade 9 classes for next year. A couple things before we get started. I just do want to point out things to hopefully make the presentation go a little bit smoother. And just as we're doing this on Zoom, I do want everyone to be aware that we are recording this presentation just so that those who can't make it tonight are able to see and look back on it, or if there's information, we will have that posted to our website hopefully by Monday. During the presentation, we've muted everybody. We're going to ask that people remain muted. And if possible, you can have your video off. One, so you're not necessarily part of the presentation, but two, it also helps save bandwidth as far as keeping the presentation smooth and allowing it to flow smoothly for everybody's computers. If you have a question throughout the presentation, we ask that you type it into the chats feature. For those that haven't used Zoom before or not comfortable or familiar with it, down at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little speaky or bubble icon, a chat icon that you can then press and you can see the chat feature. And if you type your questions in there, I will do my best to answer them throughout the presentation as it's going on. As well, there will be a section at the end of the presentation where we sort of address as many questions as we can, as well as give you email addresses to forward more specific questions if you have. That said, before we get going, I'll introduce Mr. Lally, who is the counselor here with us this year, specifically for last name students A to D. But he will be doing the presentation. We do ask that students and parents take the course selection seriously and put a lot of thought into it, just because the selections that are made now and the choices that are made do dictate what courses we offer. Depending on how many students are interested in certain courses, it can determine whether we have enough interest to run them or not. And so we do make decisions about what courses are running and how many sections of it are running. And because of that, if you change your mind at a later date, the course may not be available to take. And course changes in September are much harder to do than if you've made the correct selections to begin with. And so we just want you to keep that in mind, and we do ask that you pay attention. And if you have questions, ask them up front so that we can get the most accurate information as we're planning for next year. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Lally. Thank you, Mr. Lally, and welcome everybody.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello to everyone. Before I get started, I noticed a few people joined towards the end. If anyone has any questions, there's a chat option available. Please put your question in the chat section, and Mr. Annandale will try to answer that question while I'm speaking. I'm not going to be directly answering any questions during the presentation. At the end of the presentation, if there's any questions in the chat box area, we will try to answer those. If you have any specific questions regarding your child, it's best to email me, and my email will be available on this presentation. This presentation will be recorded and posted on our website. So I'm going to get started. So our administration, Mr. Preveo, he typically works with our grade 12 students. If there's any issues regarding students, Mr. Annandale is working with grade 8 and 10 students, and Ms. Calendar works with grade 9 and 11 students. Our counselors at DSS, myself, I work with students from A to D, that's last name. Mrs. Green is the Alpha E to H, R to Z, and Ms. Rohr is I to Q. So as I mentioned, for any questions, my email address is here. Please feel free to email me, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. A lot of you might have questions about what the schedule is going to look like next year. At this time, The ministry is planning for a quarter system similar to the current model. So 2 classes running every day for quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. We are planning for learning groups and that allow for a smoother transition. And if you look here, these are sort of the different stages. And we're hoping eventually we'll get to stage 1, where that will be sort of back to our normal system. Now, Mr. Annandale, if you have any comments about this timetable piece, feel free to jump in, or I can move on to the next slide.
Again, it's, as I say, we're currently waiting right now, as everybody is. We don't know what our situation will be in September. It is likely that we will still have some sort of restrictions around learning groups as the vaccinations are unlikely to have been finalized at September. We're hoping that they are. Because of that, we're going to continue planning on a course or a year very similar to what we had this year, where we're going to plan for a quarter system that is 2 classes running every day. We're going to plan for learning groups, and if we're allowed to open up, then that will no longer be the case. That would be meaning no hybrid classes. We wouldn't have to keep students cohorted together, and we'd be allowing a little more freedom throughout the school. But we're planning, because we've been given the mandate that regardless of how we start, we have to be able to shift easily throughout the school year from stage 1 back to stage 2, which we're in right now, or stage 3, depending on how things may change with the coronavirus and the pandemic. We're hoping that we can start in stage 1 and stay in stage 1 the entire year, but that's the reason that we're behind planning for the quarter system. We have sent out a survey for all parents to hopefully fill out, as we're seeking input on our planning for different situations and scenarios. And we'd love to hear from you as to how this year has gone so far. What are the positives and negatives, so that we can best address and meet student needs as we plan for next year. So,
great, thank you. So course selection will be opening up through MyEd BC. The course selection due date will be March 5th, 2021. If students don't have their username or password, they will need to go to the office in person and ask for that. Any new registrations, non-catch and private schools will need to fill out a paper course selection. I did have a phone call today from a parent who is still trying to access this information through Parent Connect. That no longer is, we are no longer using Parent Connect for registering for courses. So your child needs to log in with their username and password, and then you can together go through the course selection process. So, they'll log in with this link. It'll be under My Info, under the request section, and they'll be able to make selections for the courses that they want. And just a reminder, they do have to click post at the end. There'll be a post button to finalize their course selection. So for grade 9 students, there'll be 5 required courses that every child is required to take. And then there will be 3 electives. And then you're also required to pick 2 alternates. So that we ask that you pick 2 alternates because sometimes students are not able to get the electives that they want. So we ask them to pick 2 alternates and put them in preference. So what's your first alternate and what your second alternate is. That way, if a student is unable to get one of the electives that they've requested, we can easily slot them into one of their alternate courses. The other point is around prerequisites. So for example, if a student hasn't taken guitar this year and is interested in taking guitar next year, they're allowed to. The same goes for woodwork, for any other elective. So and the teachers are aware of this, and so that's not going to be a concern. So if your child is interested in taking an elective next year and they didn't have a chance to take it this year, there'll be no issues with that. The course selection booklet, here's the link. I've provided that for you. Oh, it's coming up on my screen. Give me a second here. And this can be accessed through our website. There you'll see information about all the courses, a write-up about what each course is about. If you're still unsure, I always recommend students go talk to those specific teachers and get more detailed information about what they're going to be doing in the course. I can usually provide a basic general understanding of what's going to be happening, but the first thing to do is look at the course selection book and then possibly speak with one of those teachers. So every student will be taking English, social studies, math, science, and PE. And at this point, we are just running one math. There's not going to be an essentials math or a challenge math. So all students are required to take Math 9. That's unlikely to change this year for September. So all students will pick those 5 courses: English, socials, math, science, and PE. There's a career ed 9, but that will be off timetable. Then you have your 3 electives and 2 alternates. I'm going to just run quickly through some of the electives that are being offered. And again, to Mr. Annandale's point, these are courses that are going to be offered. If we have enough students registered in the course, then they will run. If for some reason there is not enough students registered, then there's a potential the course will be removed and your child will get a different elective. So these are just some of the things students work on in the courses. Ceramics and sculpture, Art 9, graphics, some of the work previous students have done, concert band. Now, Mr. Annandale, there is, maybe you could speak to this. Is there going to be potentially a band running able for grade 9s? Has that been decided yet?
It's always offered. Again, we are hoping that there will be band. There was enough, I'm assuming that we had a large number of grade 8 students who were in the band, and we should be able to have a grade 9 band program. In years where we're not having to cohort and group students together, we would be able to run a mixed grade band, but that may not be the case. I would be very surprised if we don't have a band. I would say that you can count on that there will be a band 9 class.
Will they be in the timetable, or is it still going to be run in after school? Is that undecided yet?
The grade 8 one was run after school for a couple reasons due to the pandemic. We are hoping the grade 9 and the grade 10 bands this year ran in the timetable. So it would likely be running in the timetable and then just paired up with an academic course.
Okay, thank you. So these are some of the other electives that will be offered: computer animation, tech ed, woodwork, metalwork, power technology. That's an introduction to small engines. Again, none of these have prerequisites. Your child is able to take any of these courses. Some of the work students have completed in the past. Other electives include food studies, textiles. So for languages next year, a language is considered an elective. It is not required to be taken. A second language is not required for graduation. So there is some misconceptions out there that a second language is required for graduation. It is not, but some universities would like students to have a grade 11 language. That's UBC at the moment. When you come straight out of high school, UBC, they require a grade 11 language. SFU requires an intro, grade 11 language. None of the colleges require a second language. And if your child is going to college first and then transferring to university, then the second language in high school is not required either. And these are the languages we offer at Delta Secondary. We have French and Spanish at the grade 9 level. The reason we have French 10 in here is we do have some students who might have done French immersion or are well ahead, and those are conversations they would have with their French teachers and their counselor, which course is most appropriate. So I'm going to briefly touch on academies being offered in 2020 to 2021. Due to COVID, they are limiting what academies are going to be running next year. To get the most up-to-date information, you want to go to deltaacademies.ca. So next year, they are offering Dance Academy. And if you look at my description here, it's open to grade 8 to 12 students. It's dance is happening over 2 quarters, quarter 1 and 2, block A. Film Acting Academy is happening at the Delta Manor Education Center. It's a 2-block program in quarter 2. And film production is also a 2-block program in quarter 2. This is also offered to grade 8 to 12 students. There is going to be a Zoom session February 20th at 10 a.m. If you're interested in getting more information about the Film Academy. The other academies being offered are Film Visual Effects and Delta Lacrosse Academy. Again, all these academies are open for students from grade 8 to 12. Families are responsible for getting the children to and from the academy programs. Previously, there was rides provided, but not this year. There's a bursary assistance and family discounts available. For more information, contact Paige Hansen at this email below. For fees, questions, any specific questions about the academies, this is the best person to talk to. So that is the end of my presentation. We're going to take a look at some of the questions. Mr. Annandale is going to probably unmute himself, and we're going to look at some of the questions and see if we can answer any that have not been answered.
Going through, I tried to answer some of them as we're going. The one I'll do a bit more of a clarification. Provincially, there is only one level of math. There was a question asking if there is only one level of math. In the past, our school has offered an essentials level math for students who were struggling with math in a previous year, as well as an enriched math for students who wanted to try and get a little bit ahead. Provincially, there is only the one level of math, and so all students taking any of those courses would have been getting the same credit. In a quarter system, students can actually, if they really wanted to work ahead, it is something that they can work with their counselor or talk to, and they have the opportunity to be able to take 2 levels of math in the same year, say a level 9 in one quarter and then a higher level in a later quarter. But that would be something that we would do on an individual basis with consultation with the counselor. And we have put in a numeracy support block for students that struggle in math, so that they can get through the regular math curriculum with extra support, and then fill in any gaps so that they will hopefully have greater success as they progress in math in further years.
What about strategies? Is that being offered in Block C and during flex time, or is that the same model?
Likely, there will definitely be strategies offered again. It will be done in a manner that we know that students who need a strategies block need it for the full year, not just for a single quarter. So it becomes difficult in a quarter system to put it into a specific block, because then it's a challenge for those students in the quarters that they don't have that strategies block. So it will be run on a full year basis. And as we're still working on building the exact timetable, whether it's a block C or a morning session or just a pull out of classes at certain times is something that we're still working on. So, but it will be offered on a full year basis. Who do we talk to about academies again? The name is Paige Hansen. I just see that as one of the things. So Paige Hansen.
I put the email address in there. It's
okay.
phansen@deltasd.bc.
Okay, so yeah, right down at the bottom of the chat right now.
Will band be full year?
Band for grade 9, it will likely be an in the block time. So in the timetable, it would count as an art credit. It would not be an extra class in the afternoon for grade 9. I know this year in grade 8 it was, in order to be able to allow students to cohort together and meet the COVID restrictions. We had to put band for grade 8 outside of the timetable this year. But we are planning at the moment to have band for grade 9s be in the timetable. So it would be during a specific quarter of the year.
Will summer courses be offered this summer?
That is a very good question. We have yet to receive direction from the district on whether they will be offered this summer, because I know that they were not offered for grade 8 and 9 level last summer due to the pandemic, but that is something that unfortunately we're waiting for direction from the ministry and the school district on whether they will be offered. So unfortunately, I can't answer that one specifically right now.
Registering for strategies for grade 9. So if your child is in strategies this year, the strategies teacher will be having discussions with your child, potentially with the family and the counselor, and that if it's suitable for the child to continue with strategies next year. If your child is not in strategies this year and for some reason you believe that your child needs it, that conversation usually starts with their counselor. Usually the child will approach the counselor or the parent will contact the counselor. That's best done through email. And then there's a process in place to see if strategies is a suitable course. So I believe you will not have the option to pick strategies on your course choice request. So what we'd like you to do is still pick your full timetable, pick your 8 courses, 2 alternates, and we will then make sure the student is put into strategies. That's correct, right? Is that how we're doing it at DSS?
Yes, strategies again is it's not something that you request ahead of time, other than you can put it in the notes section of your online course so that the counselor, the notes go to the counselor, and the counselor in consultation with if they have a current strategies block, would be looking at whether a strategies course is needed and is scheduled, and it may take place of an elective or it may not. It may be an extra. I have a question in there on what strategies is. There's a number of different blocks that could count as strategies. There's a grad quest program. They're essentially supportive learning programs. So it could be a grad quest program or a learning disabilities program, a learning assistance. Basically, it's an extra block where students are getting assistance or support that in their education.
As for academy questions, they would count, one would count as PE, correct?
Yeah, and I see that Lacrosse Academy in Q4 and a Film Academy in Q2, because of the quarter system, it may be possible to take 2 academies. The challenge with doing that is that you would likely end up needing to take extra courses online in order to make sure you have all your academics, because the academies classes count as usually, so a lacrosse academy, you would get one block that is specific for lacrosse, and you would then also get a PE credit. But during that quarter, all other grade 9s would likely be taking either one of their 4 main elective academic classes, a science, an English, a math, or socials, or so on, of their required courses. So if you're in an academy, you may end up having to pick up one of those courses at another time, or double up. If you're in 2 academies, there's likely something that you're going to have to pick up outside the timetable. So being in the quarter system, possibly you could take 2 academies, but that would be something we'd have to look at in a specific case.
As for languages, grade 10, 11, and 12, Spanish and French is offered at those levels.
Yes, and there is a German 11 and 12 as well that we offer at the very higher levels. So, but Spanish and French are at grade 10, 11, and 12 all the way up.
I believe those are all the questions.
That's it. I see one that was just sent directly to me. Are students able to do course selection on Student Connect, or must it be done on MyEd? Unfortunately, as we're still in the middle of transitioning between 2 systems, it is course selection must be done on MyEd at the moment. So if you are having difficulties getting into the MyEd system, or you don't know the password, you can always try clicking forgot password and entering in your child's Delta Learns email address. And then they should get an automatic reset and everything sent to them to log in at the Delta Learns email address. If you're still having trouble getting into MyEd, you can contact the school office and we can help get any student in. And I see that, yes, MyEd, it should have been set to open up automatically today. So, but by tomorrow for sure, MyEd will be open for course selection. All of the students, I will just say, there's no rush to do it right now or tonight. All of the grade 8 students will be getting a presentation to their classes, very similar to this one, that they will be getting on, I believe Monday is when we're messaging out. It's either Monday or Tuesday that we're doing all of the classes and doing a presentation to the students so that they'll have access to be able to make the choices.
And it's not a first come, first serve. So there's no rush, as long as you have it done before March 5th. As for, there was a question about timetable. Mr. Annandale had discussed this earlier. At this time, we are going to be running a quarter system. And if things change, parents will be notified.
Yeah, and I'll specify that a bit more, is that we're planning on a quarter system because it meets all of the requirements if we are in a very similar restrictions around cohorting and learning groups and the pandemic restrictions that we have right now. If in September we're told that we can open up, that does give us more options. But at the moment, we're planning for a quarter, and there's still a chance it might go to semester, but likely it would at least start in quarter, and then possibly if it's open up by the second half of the year, we may run the last 2 quarters together as a semester. So that's something that we're currently waiting, because until the ministry makes any notifications, which they likely aren't going to do until mid-August, as to what the situation is for schooling, we're stuck planning for the scenario that we're in right now.
This question about a second language for university, as I mentioned earlier, at this time, and again, these things change, at this time, if your child is going directly from high school to, say, UBC, they require a language 11. SFU requires an intro language 11. All other schools at this time do not require a second language to be accepted. Now, with that being said, if your child has an interest in a second language, we would encourage them to take it. Also, what is the next question? How do you determine when students get course requests since it's not first come, first serve? So basically, it's actually a system it kind of runs in the background. Most students, or all students, are getting the 5 required courses, and then students then pick their electives. It's usually run through a system, and students are allotted those electives.
It's not usually an issue that we don't have space for students in the classes. It's more if only, say, 5 students wanted to take a certain elective, then we may not run it. And so those 5 students wouldn't get that class because there wasn't enough students interested to run a course. And so they may get one of their alternates. The other reason a student in grade 9 may not get a course is that if the 2 electives that they were interested in both happen to occur at the same spot in the timetable, they can't be in both of them because there's a conflict, or it's happening, or one might be happening when they're in an academy. And so there's a conflict in their timetable and they can't get one of their courses because they have another course in that time. That would be another reason that they may not get an elective. But at grade 9, as long as we have enough students interested in a course to run it, we usually make sure that they're, that students get in. If there is a situation where we have just a few too many students for the single block, then it would come down to likely a random scheduling as to who gets in, but that essentially at grade 9, I don't see any real situations where we have to worry about first come, first serve, or that students not getting into courses other than there being a conflict.
Do grade 10 electives need grade 9 prerequisites? The answer is no. Our electives, we have, the prime example I'll give you is guitar, for example. I've talked to the teacher on several occasions. He has students in grade 12, that might be the first time taking guitar. So, we encourage students to try different courses. Obviously, if you've never taken sewing before and you decide to take sewing 12, there might be a bit of a challenge there, but that's nothing a student maybe can't overcome with some extra work, time, and effort. If there's any other questions, please put them in the chat. Otherwise, as I mentioned in my presentation, this presentation will be up on our website. So if you missed anything, or if you want to go back to any of the slides, it'll be on our school website. My email address is also available there. Please contact, if your child's last name is from A to D, you can send me an email, and the other counselor's contact information is also available there.
And this, finally, I did see, going back, there was one more message that went directly to me. Just if a student is in a specific program, just whether the C block would be in there. So a supportive learning program, such as either GradQuest or junior supportive learning or so on. At the moment, we're still looking at what kind of schedules we can create in order to meet the ministry requirements for instructional minutes. And that's where we're looking for feedback. So if you have the if you received a link to our survey, and I'll send another one out tomorrow, if you received a link to our survey that we're looking at how this year's going in our quarter system, we'd love to hear from you as we're planning for next year. But at the moment, we haven't decided exactly whether it will be a C block or whether it will be, but there will be a time for students in supportive learning to be able to access that support and see their teachers and their supportive learning teachers.
And just to add to that, when we're talking about supportive learning or strategies, traditionally it was called learning assistance. So it's for students who are struggling in school, or they may have a learning disability, and there's a process in place if a student would qualify for that program. So that usually will start with a conversation with your child's counselor, and then we go from there. There's a question here for buses for Academy. No, there's no transportation available. Parents are required to pick them up and drop off the child at the Academy location.
The theater question I see, it's this year it ran as a club, no credit. Will it be a class again with course credit? A lot of that depends on if there's enough sign up. If there's enough sign up, then yes, it would be a class with that would count for course credit. The reason that didn't happen was there was a lower sign up, but we were also told when planning that with the pandemic protocols that it was unlikely that it would be allowed to run as it was a performance class and at that time. And so that was part of the reason that it ended up not running as a 4-credit class this year. We are hoping that we are given the go ahead and that yes, we're allowed to run it as a 4-credit class. And so that is our plan, that it will be a 4-credit class provided that there is enough interest.
So if your child is interested in theater, we encourage them to sign up for the course. Then it gives us a clear picture of how many students are actually interested in the program, and that gives us the ability to run that program. I don't see any other questions. Mr. Handel, do you see any directly to you?
No, I don't see any extras, so.
Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for their patience. This is our first time running this through Zoom. Again, if there are any questions, please feel free to email one of the counselors, and we will try to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you again.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening, and we'll talk to you soon.